After many months of build-up, the first Grand Slam in Kingston, Jamaica is finally here, where we will get to see if Michael Johnson's upstart league is really what it hypes itself to be. As a distance running fan, I am going to be giving my prediction on the men's short distance races to see who will be crowned the first ever Grand Slam champion in the category. Before we get into the prediction, let's do a quick preview of the field. Each category will feature 4 races and 4 challengers. Racers are contracted athletes who are paid a base salary and obliged to compete in all 4 slams. Challengers are freelance athletes aiming to make a name for themselves and are there to bulk up the field and give the events variety slam to slam. They will all be competing in 2 races in their categories. For the short distance, it's the 800 and 1500 meters, and they'll be given points based on their individual performance in each race. The athlete with the most overall points will be Grand Slam champion and take home $100,000 in prize money, but the other athletes will get a very healthy prize fund as well. The men's short distance category is probably the most stacked and highly anticipated category in the field. The races are Josh Kerr, Yared Nuguse, Hocker and Arop. The challengers are Emmanual Wanyonyi, Bryce Hoppel, Neil Gully and Mohamed Atui. So who do I think is going to win? We'll start off with the 1500 meters, as that is the first event being run on the schedule. Now, one of the most important decisions I make when trying to predict races is estimating whether the race is tactical or fast to see which athlete's race style best suits that. As we know, half of this field are 1500 meter specialists, so we would immediately expect them to have an advantage over the 800 guys, especially in a fast race where their superior aerobic training will take over. That said, the 800 guys may have some real venom in their kick if the race is super tactical, although kicking in an 800 is very different to kicking in a 15. It's clear the 1500 runners will want to make this race fast to take the 800 challengers out of this race. If they let the race become tactical, it gives a big help to those 800 meter specialists, who theoretically have more raw speed in their legs. Therefore, you would expect a fast pace, but here's the issue. The race has no paces, which means the 1500 guys are going to need to take the initiative if they want to keep the pace fast. Normally not an issue, but what makes this race so interesting is that all of these athletes have relied on the pace setting of Jakob Ingebrigtsen in major championship races. Given the Norwegian is not competing in this slam, the question is which of the 1500 guys are going to take the lead to keep the pace honest. Yared Nuguse is probably the closest thing to a frontrunner of the 1500 races, but I wouldn't say that's his default race tactic. He kind of seesaws between front running and sit and kick tactics, so it's not guaranteed that he'll take the lead in this event. He only tends to front run when he is either the favourite going into a meet or is chasing a record, neither of which are true here. What's more, the last 2 times he front ran a non-paced race were the New Balance KO Road Mile and the 2024 US National Champs / Olympic qualifiers. In both races, he was outkicked by Elliot Giles and Cole Hocker respectively, so he might not be too keen to take the race on early. Nuguse is in good shape as we saw from the Milrose Games, but he's not in perfect shape as his attempt to break Jakob's newly set indoor mile record fell quite far short. So I don't think he has the legs to simply outrun the likes of a Kerr or Hocker, especially since after running a 7:23 3k and a 12:57 5k during this indoor season, Hocker's strength is better than it ever has been, and of course his kick is never in doubt. We don't have recent data on Kerr. Based on his YouTube vlogs, he's not had the perfect winter with some illness and injury concerns on his hip, but he has been posting training sessions occasionally and saying that they're going well. So I'll take his word for it and assume he'll be in decent shape for the slam. Now I would bet that an in-shape Nuguse can drop Gurley and all the 800 guys through front running given their comparatively slow PBs. Although there is very little data on the 800 guys, it seems reasonable to think they will fade in the race if it's a run around 3:30, given the fastest 1500 PB among them is a 3:36 by Atui. I know most of the PBs are outdated. Arop has publicly stated he thinks he can run sub 3:30, but given the lack of data, it doesn't make sense to assume he can until this actually happens, especially this early on in the season. The fact remains that if Nuguse tries to front run the whole race, it gives a significant advantage to Hocker and Kerr, even if the other competitors are dropped. He may therefore realise that becoming the sacrificial lamb is not in his best interest and might choose to hold back, preventing a super fast pace. Despite this, I do think the race will still be decently quick as it prevents the unnecessary risk of a tactical bout with the 800 runners, but I doubt it's going to be a super fast sub 3:30 race. With this in mind, how exactly might the race play out in more detail, and what are the 1500 guys' best routes to victory? Starting with Kerr's best route to victory, which in a nutshell is to sit right on the front runner from the gun and drive early with just over a lap to go. Kind of like how he passed Ingebrigtsen at last year's pre-classic. Kerr is smart enough to realise that a tactical race wouldn't favour him as a 1500 specialist, but attempting a late sit and kick strategy against Nuguse in the final stretch could result in a head-to-head 100 meter sprint with Cole Hocker, like in the Olympics. An outcome he'd likely want to avoid given that his chances in such a scenario wouldn't be ideal. If Kerr instead drives early and holds the inside line, Hocker might struggle to outkick Kerr if he's forced around the bend. This would further suit Kerr as I think his kick is better when it's sustained over a lap or so, whereas I think Hocker's kick excels in a 50 to 200 meter sprint. So I'd say Kerr's best route to victory is if he tracks a front-running Nuguse closely and kicks on him between about 400 to 600 meters out, using the bend to hold off Hocker. The problem for Kerr is that this approach requires a lot of fitness and confidence from him, but it's unclear whether he'll have either given his inconsistent winter training. It's hard to tell whether he's just had a small hiccup pre-Millrose or if he's been nursing longer term problems, but regardless, it seems pretty unlikely he will turn up in similar shape that he was in pre-Classic. Although I think this approach is his best chance for victory, it might not be a viable option for him right now, and Kerr may instead try his chances in a more tactical and volatile final 200. Whatever happens, I hope we don't see a rehash of the Zurich Diamond League. I think Hocker's best route to victory is to rely on the others to set a fast pace and execute a more traditional sit and kick race in the final 100 or so. I don't see him front running even if he feels strong, especially given that kicking early may have costed him the race in the Millrose Games 3K. And ultimately, he is probably the fastest of everyone in the home stretch, so he has no reason to take the brunt of the pace. His best case scenario is a reasonable pace that is fast enough to drop the 800 guys, but slow enough that it really comes down to a 100 meter sprint. If the race is super fast, then the strength will matter a little bit more than raw speed, which is when Nuguse and Kerr can challenge him much better. Therefore, he needs to let his competition do the work and conserve his energy for that final sprint. Now, Nuguse is a tough one because I don't think he has a clear path to victory, given that I think Hocker and Kerr are just a little bit better than him, assuming everyone turns up in good form, of course. He is somewhat of an all-rounder, a good final sprint and good strength, but he's not the best in the world at either. I honestly think he has very little chance of victory unless Hocker has an especially bad race. If he front runs early, we'll likely see a rehash of last year's US Championships, but if he keeps the race tactical, he is unlikely to beat Hocker in the final stretch. That said, with Josh Kerr's fitness being in question and the presence of the 800 runners as well, it may actually make sense for him to front run in this instance. I doubt it will net Nuguse a victory given Hocker will simply sit and kick on him, but I think it gives him a solid chance of beating a potentially handicapped Kerr. As for how the 800 meter guys will do, it's very hard to give any thoughts given how little we know about their form in the 1500. Wanyonyi did have the road mile world record at one point, but it was by no means a fast time and was later obliterated by Elliot Giles. That said, him and Arop have shown strong front running ability in the top 800 meter races, which would point to them being able to adapt better to the longer distance. Wanyonyi especially seems to prefer front running. Whilst Arop typically sits near the back for the start of most 800 championship races, Wanyonyi consistently powers ahead even in non-paced runs. Hoppel tends to only front run when he's a favourite in the race, much like Nuguse. It's virtually impossible to say, but I would bet on Wanyonyi having the best raw fitness, though I think his lack of race experience compared to Arop may make him take the race a little too hard in the first kilometre and fade soon after. Arop will be more astute in his pacing, and given his 800 meter fitness is only rivaled by Wanyonyi, I would bet on him to do the best in the 1500 meters of the 800 runners. As for Hoppel, Gurley and Otui, it's hard to say. Otui has the most recent 1500 performance, but a 3:36 is nothing to get excited about at this level. Gurley of course is a 1500 runner, but he has yet to break 3:30, so is unlikely to seriously challenge the other 15 guys. He had a poor showing at the European Champs, but was able to secure second place behind Ingebrigtsen in a tactical world indoor final. I see him placing 4th in the 1500 meter, but I'm not sure how he's going to do in the 8. Speaking honestly, it would be a major upset if any of these guys won the race or even podiumed in the 1500, but what I would say is that Gurley and the 800 race's best chance for victory is to cause chaos. Because individually, I doubt any of them have a chance of keeping up in a fast race, especially this early in the season. Maybe Gurley could secure 4th place. So if they link up with some event team tactics by going to the front of the pack and trying to slow the race down, it could make the race very interesting. And whilst I do doubt the 800 guys' finishing speed will be as strong in the 1500 meters, it's undoubtedly their best chance to victory. If you let Nuguse or someone else set an aggressive pace, they have no chance of winning. But let's say Wanyonyi runs out front and sows a bit of chaos, some clipping heels, some runners cut off, boxed in and prevented from stretching their legs. Ideally for them, that stops the front runner from getting into a rhythm of repping 56-second laps. In this scenario, we could maybe see an upset on the cards, although I think it's fairly unlikely. With all this in mind, how do I see this race playing out? If I had to guess, I see Hocker or Kerr winning, with me leaning more towards Hocker. I'd say Nuguse will be the one to take the initiative, with Kerr sitting on his shoulder, ready to take over pacing duties or strike in the final lap. Hocker will sit in the middle of the pack and position himself well when Nuguse begins to fade for the final 200 meters. Him and Kerr will have a head-to-head sprint, which I see Hocker winning. He has the fastest 1500 kick in the world and seems to be in the best aerobic shape of his life, whereas Kerr has had a patchier winter by the looks of things. Nuguse could also make a late challenge as he did in the Olympics on Kerr. As for Gurley, I think he'll come 4th, ahead of the 800 runners with Arop following behind. Wanyonyi may try and keep up early, but I think he'll probably gas out after 1000 meters or so. It's almost impossible to say the final position order, but I don't think we really care who comes 6th, 7th or 8th. If Kerr turns up in good form, I see him giving Hocker a real challenge and coming 2nd place, but if he doesn't, Nuguse is going to take that 2nd place from him, and Kerr could even have quite a bad race. Now onto the 800 meters. Here of course the script is flipped, with the 800 runners being the heavy favourites and the 15 guys being expected to trail behind. I am even more confident in the 15 guys trailing behind because the 800 roster have Wanyonyi, who aggressively front runs even in non-paced meets. Again, it makes no sense for the 800 guys to give an easy pace because even though they will have superior finishing speed, upsets are far more likely in a tactical setup. I do see the 800 really being a fitness test because what seems most likely is that Wanyonyi will try and front run the legs off of everyone, and the big question will be who can keep up. Looking purely at PBs, Arop has the best shot of it and is the most accomplished in championship races. Whilst he does front run in paced races, when you look at the Olympics and Budapest World Championships, he actually hangs right at the back and moves up in the field for a fast finish. Both times it worked out pretty well for him, though he was just beaten by Wanyonyi in the Olympic final. Hocker tends to stay in the middle of the pack and hold on for as long as he can. As for Tui, we don't have a lot of data on him in major championship races as he has gained his fitness very recently. In the Olympics, he essentially tracked Arop's move, but didn't have the same fitness to fully keep up. His indoor season has been packed but quite mixed in results, and given his PBs, his best shot is placing 4th in the 800 I'd say. It will be between him and Gurley, though on paper he should beat Gurley comfortably. As for the 15 guys, their personal bests in the 800 are comparatively poor, but again it's quite outdated. They all have PBs around the 145 mark. All of them will of course have good aerobic strength in the event given their 1500 background, although Hocker's raw finishing speed in the 1500 makes me wonder if he's a little bit more talented for the 800 meter race. I see Wanyonyi leading the pack at a strong pace with the others tracking behind. I'm unsure whether Arop will track him closely or be more towards the middle of the pack, but I do think he'll wait to kick on Wanyonyi towards the end if he fades. It's worth noting that this event occurs after the 1500 meter, so they will be running on some more tired legs. Hopper will come 3rd after hanging on to Wanyonyi and Arop with a Tui in 4th. With the 1500 guys, it really feels like a toss-up. Regardless, I'm going to go with Arop winning the race after outkicking or fading Wanyonyi. I think Wanyonyi will be able to hang on for 2nd, but his legs will be a little tired from the 1500 to front run the whole race effectively. I'd say the winning time is a high 143, low 144 kind of race. But ultimately, all of these specific race predictions are very speculative. With the 800 meter especially being such a volatile event, it's very hard to give confident analysis. These are just my thoughts based on the athlete's history and a bit of fun speculation on what's going to happen. The final question then remains, who will become Grand Slam champion? With GST's point system, you can take different approaches to win the overall meet. You could take the specialist approach, aiming to win one event and just trying to hang on and do decently in your non-specialist event. Or you could try a more generalist approach and get 3rd or 4th place in either event. However, with nearly everyone being a specialist and the point system recently being reformed to favour the winner of the race heavily, I think it's between Arop and Hocker for the title, with Wanyonyi and Nuguse also being contenders. If Kerr is in good shape, I think he also has a shot of it as well, but I think he needs to be in prime form to challenge Hocker and Arop seriously, which he almost certainly isn't in. If we assume that Arop and Hocker get maximum points in their own speciality, the question is who will do the least bad in the other event? And honestly, I have no clue, because I would pick Arop and Hocker coming 5th in their non-specialist events, although there's a very good chance they could place 6th or 7th as well. As a final choice, I'm going to go with Marco Arop becoming the first Grand Slam champion. I think he has a good chance of winning the 800 and placing 5th in the 1500. Hocker has Nuguse, Kerr and Gurley to worry about in the 800, whereas I only see Wanyonyi being a real threat in the 15. If you want to see a video about my initial thoughts on Grand Slam track, then click on this video here. If you want to see a documentary about the career and controversy of Elliot Giles, then click on this video here. Thank you very much for watching and I'll see you back in the next one. Happy training.